Recently, one of my students came up to me and asked, "Mr. Britt, would you ever go to Disney World?" I thought about it a second and replied, I would love to, but unfortunately I can't. The student who had repeatedly read our learning targets in the voice of Mickey Mouse responded, "But why?" I told him that I would maybe tell him someday, but it's for a reason that I don't usually talk about at school. The reason I can't go to Disney World is because I can't legally use the bathroom there because I'm trans. It's taken me a long time to become comfortable talking about being trans. A lot of that work has come from talking with other trans people. Yet, a lot of my comfort has reverted ever since the anti-trans laws started springing up. I feel torn about even giving this talk, knowing that it will be public and wondering if my safety will be at risk. There's a real risk to talking about being trans and being an educator. I wonder who right now my existence is upsetting. But the risk feels worth the message. At a certain point, when your very existence is political, sharing your voice at all, being visible at all, it's bigger than yourself and is an act of resistance. The first time I really shared my voice about being trans publicly was through an art project. I'm a musician and an artist, and when I decided to transition medically and start hormone replacement therapy, one of my trans friends said, "You know, once your voice changes, it will never go back again. So you should record your songs so you can listen to your old voice again. You can listen to your old voice again someday." I took that suggestion seriously. Over the next 6 months, I recorded a 10-song album. The songs at the beginning of the album feature my old, high-pitched voice. The songs in the middle of the album feature both my old and my new voice singing together. And then the songs at the end of the album feature my new voice as the lead. I released the album out into the world, and it made no splash in the typical sense, but it mattered to me, and it felt really powerful to be able to document my transition in this way. Years later, I'm a teacher teaching special education at a Title I school, and one of my autistic students had a tendency to get really intrigued by his teachers. It was one of his special interests. And he came into class one day and he said, "Mr. Britt, I Googled you last night." I was like, "Oh yeah? What did you find?" "I found your music." Y'all, I panicked. I had not intended my life as a musician, my life as a trans person, to collide with my life as a teacher. Suddenly, he starts singing back some of the lyrics. "Gotta wait it out, gotta wait it out." I responded with the urgency of my emotional distress. "Stop singing that, you can't sing that here, you can't sing that here." He looked a little confused, but he stopped, thankfully. And we both went on with our days. The following week, he came into school, came into class, and he seemed agitated. He sat down at his desk and started stimming. Stims are repeated movements like rocking that can signal stress in autistic people. I asked him what was wrong, he didn't respond. I knelt down and asked him again, "Hey, what's wrong?" He said, "Mr. Britt, I gotta go wait it out. Can I go for a walk?" I sent him on his walk, but inside, I was celebrating for him. This was a huge deal. This was the first time he had been able to ask for a break before having a meltdown. And it was the song that had given him the language to do so. That day, I learned the power of sharing my voice. I learned the power of sharing my music. And I learned the magic that my life as a trans person, my experience as a trans person, doesn't just apply to the trans experience, but to so many other challenging experiences in life. And so the question I ask today is, what if the trans story was all of our stories? Reflecting on the impact of the album on me, it opened the door to me being able to be authentic about other challenging experiences in life, if not only so that it helps someone else feel seen. Because growing up, I did not feel seen. There was no GSA, Gender Sexuality Alliance, at my school. I didn't know any other queer people that I knew of, let alone trans people. So I just didn't have the support to be who I am. And for so many trans people, that lack of support has catastrophic consequences. According to the Trevor Project, 52% of trans men considered suicide last year. 18% followed through. The odds of surviving as a trans-masculine person in this world means that every year I continue to stay alive, I'm beating the odds. Not only that, but according to the Trevor Project as well, in states that passed anti-trans laws aimed at trans minors, states saw up to a 72% increase in suicide attempts by transgender people and gender non-conforming teens. Sitting with the weight of this heartbreaking reality, of course, I turned to music to express it. The year I turned 31, I wrote another song that had an unexpected impact. The song is called Not Today, and it's about the feeling that I don't belong in the world despite the urge I sometimes feel not to. One of the first times I played the song live was at an open mic, and after I performed, one of the audience members came up to me. She was in tears. She said that the song so closely reflected her own struggles with mental health, and that the song gave her hope. Little did she know, the story I was telling in the song was a trans story. It was directly inspired by the feeling that I had when I was a kid of being trans and not having the freedom to express it. This highlights the idea that I hope stays with you today. What if the trans story was all of our stories? What if the trans story is the story of someone daring to ask the question, who am I? And allowing themselves to answer honestly. It is not easy to answer honestly. We are fed shame from the time we are children. And that shame is reinforced by the media, by social media, by government, by religion. Alok Vaidmanan said, shame eats at us until it fully consumes us. And then we can't tell the difference between their shame and our own. The shadow cast by that shame falls differently on different people, though. And it falls differently on different trans people. Because actually, in reality, my experience as a trans person is actually pretty okay. Especially compared to other people in the trans community. The experience of being trans for trans women, like my wife, or for Black trans people, like some of my friends, is drastically different than mine. I remember the shift from being read female to being read male. I was working at a headphone store at the time. And when I was being read female, I remember a customer comes into the store and he's trying to decide between these two pairs of headphones. And I told him, hey, based on his preferences, that he would prefer a particular pair. He didn't believe me. He took out his phone, he Googled it, he found a blog post, he read the whole thing, and made his decision. Little did he know, I literally wrote the blog post, y'all. I literally wrote the blog post. It's on me. Compare that experience to when I was being perceived as male. Customers would come into the store, they would ask for my opinion. I would give it to them and they would just listen. They would trust me. Being read as male in our society is a privilege. That's not to discount issues that men face. But as I can attest, as someone who has, walked through the world being perceived as both female and male, when men speak, other men listen. My wife's experience was the opposite of mine. Her privilege moved in the opposite direction. And the experience of other trans friends shifted as well. At one point, I managed a record label, and we signed Black trans artists. And one day, we got invited to go up to Montreal, Canada, to perform at a university there. And so we all piled into the car, and we drove up to Montreal. And when we got there to the place where they told us to load in, I dropped the artists off because it was February, it was freezing. I don't know if you've been to Montreal, Canada in February, but it was very, very cold. And so I dropped them off so I could go park the car. When I got back from parking, the artists were all standing outside still. I asked them, why are y'all still out here? And they said that security had kicked them out because they did not believe that they were actually there to perform. I walked in and within 30 seconds they were letting all of us in. I didn't change anything, nothing changed. I didn't show them any documentation. They just perceived me as a white man. What if the trans story, what if all the stories for the fight for freedom and for liberation, for the pursuit of happiness, for the desire for dignity and respect were all of our stories? We all have varying degrees of power within our own worlds to uplift the voices of people with less privilege than us. So if nothing else after this talk, I urge you to assess your power. How can you use your voice to uplift the experiences or to uplift the voices of people with less privilege than you? How can you use your strength? How can you use your talents and your skills? How can you use your wealth? Right now, oh, I forgot to show you some pictures. Well, that's all right. Right now, trans people need you. We need you to see us. We need you to believe us. We need you to fight for us. Because our story is your story too.